sister was a legend, man.
To the killer, man, they're gonna catch you, boy. They're gonna catch you, I'm telling you.
She ain't deserve this. She did not deserve this. You can't tell me nothing.
18 years young.
They lovingly called her Chicken.
Bop on her step, that's why they call her Chicken, little bow-legged.
18-year-old Tayshana Murphy. She was a rising basketball star until her brutal murder Sunday. She was shot in the chest, the hip, and the hand while trying to protect her little brother, Bam Bam.
She was very loyal. Like, if you was her friend, she always had your back no matter what problem. If you was arguing with somebody, she was always there for you.
Reports indicate that Bam Bam was mixed up in a violent feud between the people from Grant House and the Manhattanville projects. When the two suspects couldn't find him, they took their anger out on Chicken. That's according to her cousin, Pierre Walton.
It wasn't no drama. She was never into no extra shit. She just wanted to live life. Like, that was her.
Outside the building where she lived, candles lit the floor and a box of chicken.
It's hurtful to know that you would take an innocent person's life and just like think that it's a piece of trash to throw it away. Like, basketball was her life.
The talented star was ranked by ESPN as the nation's 16th best point guard in her class. But the gifted athlete also had a record. 2 previous arrests that were sealed and another for third-degree assault. Despite the runnings with the law, number 15 had a bright future. She wanted to land a college scholarship and play pro basketball. Chicken's girlfriend Tay was too emotional to speak. She just held a memento of them together. Police have yet to locate and arrest the suspects. If you have any information, please dial 1-800-577-TIPS. This is Maria Sandoval for the New York Post.
Breaking news this morning, there's been a major gang roundup by the NYPD.
All kinds of takedowns all over town. Let's go to Lisa Evers. She's got a tip about this almost before it happened, or even before it happened. Lisa, what's happening?
Well, Greg and Rosanna, we're here in Harlem at the scene of one of the biggest NYPD gang takedowns ever. It started very early this morning here at the Manhattanville houses and also a couple blocks away at the Grant houses. Let me show you some of the video that we captured here as police were taking out what they are telling us are some of the most dangerous gang members in the city. One of the suspects was from what's called the Stack 3 gang, and as he was led in handcuffs into the police van, he yelled out, "Happy Stack Day," still defiant. Now, residents here in these housing developments have been terrorized by these gangs, have been experienced a number of shootings and other types of crime, including drug dealing and weapons possession, that have been going on here for quite some time. Now, what we're hearing is from the Manhattan DA's office, more than 100 suspects are being indicted today, and this is one of the largest numbers of gangs that they've taken down as part of what's called Operation Crew Cut. This was begun under Commissioner Kelly back in 2010, working with the Manhattan DA, and these gang members were basically, according to authorities, acting as if they had total impunity to do their dirty business and put it out on Facebook and other social media outlets, and they were bragging about it, not realizing that law enforcement was hip to them. They had developed codes that were so sophisticated that the DA's office had to actually come up with almost a textbook of code language to explain to prosecutors and police what they were talking about when they were making threats against rival gang members and also threatening to do other things in the community that many people here were very, very upset by. So a major bust this early this morning took place here at the Grant houses. We're also hearing from sources that one of the suspects who was picked up might have been connected with the murder of that high school aspiring female high school basketball player a couple of years ago, the one who had won a Division I scholarship and was on her way to a female basketball star career. So there's a lot to this case, and investigators feeling very satisfied with what happened this morning. They also picked up some other people not necessarily involved with these cases who had outstanding warrants, because what we've learned from being out here this morning is they have hand scanners, portable hand scanners, almost like mini iPads that they can take, scan people as they're doing these raids and picking up other people who are wanted for outstanding violations and other outstanding crimes. So a very busy morning here. More than 400 police officers, very specialized units from the NYPD, the gang unit leading off on it, the OCCB, the Organized Crime Control Bureau, Narcotics Division, and also the Public Housing Police, who are very familiar with many of these suspects and have been aware of their activities. So what they're calling a successful operation. There'll be many more details on this later on this afternoon at police headquarters at 2 o'clock, where Police Commissioner Bratton, as well as Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance, will be holding a news conference to explain the full total effect of what happened today and also where these indictments are going. But the police and the prosecutors are sending a very clear message to these gang members who are trying to spread their name and spread terror through social media, and also to the hardworking people who live in these developments, that this will not be tolerated, and no matter how much code they throw around, they're going to crack it and they're going to get them. That's the message we're sending out here today. We're live in Harlem. I'm Lisa Evers, Fox 5 News. Rowan, Greg, back to you.
Lisa, great scoop, a wild takedown. Give us an idea. Do you know the gangs, their names? We've heard of the Crips, the Bloods, but are they that? Can you take us through that a little bit? Do you know the gang names?
Well, Greg, this is the thing. They've changed. They're called crews now because they're much more localized, and many of them are localized in the housing developments themselves. And in the Grant houses, it was the Stack 3 crew, or Stack 3 gang. That's what they called themselves. There are two other ones from this particular project, Manhattanville. They were affiliated with each other, and what they do is they each have their own little turf. And then if there's a bigger problem facing them, like a bunch of them are in prison or in jail on Rikers Island, they'll form what they call affiliates, and they'll unite with each other against others. So the traditional gangs that we've heard about in the past, like the Bloods and the Crips, are not really what the authorities are seeing here operating on the streets of New York City. They're much more localized. They post these videos online. They make a name for themselves, and then they go to war with other people. Sometimes investigators are telling me for no reason at all. This is the other thing that's different about this gang activity that they've been really working to get a handle on since 2010, whereas the gangs of old were organized around specific trades like drug dealing, like prostitution, that type of thing. Sometimes these gang members, they just start beef with other gang members, have shootouts, and end up killing people for no particular reason at all, and very young ages too, some of them, as young as 13 and 14. So that's a concern. The police department wants to get a handle on this, especially as the summer is beginning. Greg?
Yeah, right. Lisa,
today we are announcing charges against 103 individuals for their role in what is the largest indicted gang case in this city's history. The takedown, we believe, will immediately improve public safety in the areas where the gangs operated, the Manhattanville houses and the Grant houses in West Harlem. The indictments which we are unsealing today contain 145 counts that details the murders of 2 young people and the non-fatal shootings of 19 others, and numerous other serious beatings and assaults. 50 illegal guns were used in the commission of these shootings, guns that were traded at or near public schools and transported in some cases by kids as young as 10 years old.
The individuals that we arrested this morning, by and large, are from those developments. They're the children of people in those developments who are terrorizing the children and other families in the developments. It is not organized crime in the sense that we think of, or gangs that controlling drug territory, as the district attorney referenced. These are feuds that go back through generations and are just so hard to understand, and the violence is mindless in many respects.
I love you, Chicken. I love you so much. Oh my God. She didn't deserve to die like this. She did.
Her nickname was Chicken. To family and friends who came to say goodbye, Tayshana Murphy was a legend.
My cousin was just loved by everybody. It's hard right now.
Her memorial service in Astoria, Queens drew a crowd of hundreds. Some gathered outside and sang a song for her.
We miss you. You got the whole 5 boroughs feeling empty, dude. I never thought I'd see your face next to bad news. But every time I see the sun, I know you're smiling through.
Murphy shined on the basketball court at Murray Bergstrom High School in Lower Manhattan and was considered one of the top female prospects in the country.
They took that from her. They took her life. They took her career. They took everything from her.
The 18-year-old was shot and killed by 2 gunmen who chased her into her own housing complex near 125th Street last Sunday. Police are still searching for Robert Cartagena and Tyshawn Brookington in connection with the murder. It's possible the violence stemmed from an ongoing feud between 2 housing complexes.
This is a message that was sent by God that we must stop the violence.
Every game she's gonna be on the bench like she was, cheering for us, making us laugh in the locker room.
Her teammates promised to dedicate this season in her honor.
Our championship ring gonna say rest in peace chicken. Our warm-up's gonna say rest in peace chicken. Every time they announce a starting five, we're gonna leave an open seat for her because that's where she was supposed to be. And we're gonna take this for her.
For the legend who will never be forgotten. Dan Bowens, Fox 5.
Dozens of people police believe to be gang members were arrested and indicted in New York City Wednesday in what authorities are calling one of the largest gang sweeps in the city's history.
Takedown targeting alleged gang members who terrorized the Manhattanville and Grant houses for years, with at least 20 shootings and 2 murders, including the shooting death of a promising basketball star.
According to the New York Times, more than 400 NYPD officers rushed into the 2 Harlem housing projects around 5:30 a.m. Wednesday. The paper reports 29 search warrants were executed in the operation, and a grand total of 103 people were indicted. Authorities say the gangs busted Wednesday are the same people responsible for a bloody gang turf war that resulted in the shooting death of up-and-coming basketball star Tayshana "Chicken" Murphy. Grantland reports the nationally ranked point guard was gunned down in her own building September 10, 2011, as she begged for mercy. She was just 18 years old.
He took something away from us that was so valuable and so precious, and she didn't even have anything to do with anything. I mean, like, it was just senseless.
Police told the New York Post it was Murphy's murder that prompted them to conduct a years-long investigation into the violent turf war. And local residents say they're happy police are cracking down on violence in the area.
If that's what it's going to take to clean up the streets, then that's what they have to do.
A complete list of those arrested during Wednesday's raid and the charges against them is expected to be released during a news conference at NYPD headquarters later Wednesday. For Newsy, I'm Cliff Judy.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. The views, the likes, the new subscribers means everything, guys. We're on our way. We're closing in on 7,500 subscribers. That's amazing. Haven't been doing this a year, and it's really cool to see the channel grow, so really appreciate that. Today we're going to be talking about a couple different things, but we're going to be focusing on the murder of Tayshana "Chicken" Murphy, a very talented 18-year-old female basketball star out of New York. She was murdered on September 11th, 2011, which, if you know your history, actually, that was 10 years to the day of September 11th, 2001, the day the Twin Towers were attacked. So Tayshana was a very beloved member of the community, as you could see in those videos. Her dad was he really became a community activist after her murder, but he was well known in the community too. Been through a lot, been to prison, fought murder charges, drug dealing. He lived his life, right? He had his ups and downs, but he had a wonderful, beautiful daughter who was really heading somewhere, it seemed like, and her life was snuffed out. Now you got to understand where we're at, okay? We're in Harlem. We're in a lot of gang-infested areas. We're dealing with housing projects. They called it the turf war between the Manhattanville and the Grant houses. Gangs such as 3 Stacks crew, Money Ave crew. They were part of one of the largest biggest gang roundups in New York City history. We're going to get into that. But Tayshana "Chicken" Murphy was gunned down in an escalating gang beef. In the early morning of September 11th, Tayshana "Chicken" Murphy was gunned down. She was murdered in a stairwell at the Grant houses. And it was one of those things where they were actually looking for her brother, Taylonn Murphy, who was a member of the rival gang, the 3 Stacks crew. They got his sister. He had shot at members of Money Ave in March 2011, some months prior. And so there was conflict already there. But when the murder of Tayshana "Chicken" Murphy happened, the conflict went to a whole nother level. Now, also around this time, the early 2010s, right? If any of you are, I'm in my early 30s. So I remember this time I was in my early 20s at the time. Social media was growing. Social media was beginning to really, really grow. And you see that with a lot of the gang members nowadays. It's super popular. But during this time, I don't know if you guys remember this time, this is when Chief Keef was coming out. This is when Chicago drill scene was coming out. New York had its own scene. And what's the thing you see? People were posting what they did online or leaving kind of cryptic tweets. I don't know if you guys ever watched anything on like King Von out of Chicago. Any of those shooters, man, out of Chicago. That's kind of what comes to my mind when I think of basically high-level gang violence and social media. That's kind of what pops into my head first. I've just watched so much content on that. But it was going on here. So gang members on both sides of the platform, they use the platform to taunt rivals, boast of criminal exploits, while also giving law enforcement officials a trove of data. And that's how a lot of these guys get caught. Excuse me. 3 months after Tayshana's murder, of a Money Ave member named Walter Reck Sumter posted a video on YouTube insulting 3 Stacks members and mocking Tayshana Murphy's murder. 2 weeks after he did that, Sumter was shot and killed, leaving an East Harlem, it was like a Sweet 16 party. And hours later, a gentleman of the 3 Stacks crew, Eric Bullet Pierce, one of the accused shooters, sent a Facebook message indicating that he threw B words in the graveyard for real and set his status to, quote, N-words die every day. Now, we're going to get into the murder of Sumter in a bit. We're going to focus on Tayshana, though, Murphy for a sec. So, her murder, her murder upset the community. I posted those videos of the news. Everybody loved her. She was a rising basketball star. So they really went after these guys. And 2 suspects quickly arose. Robert Cartagena, Tyshawn Brockington. We're going to be talking about Cartagena first. And this is from an article that I was reading. Quote, the Harlem Brute convicted of murdering high school basketball star Tayshana Chicken Murphy was sentenced to 25 years to life as an emotional Manhattan judge blasted the killing as an utterly senseless crime. Robert Cartagena, 23 years old, clearly earned, quote, the stiff sentence when he gunned down Murphy during a violent feud between rivals of 2 West Harlem housing projects in September of 2011, said Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Thomas Farber. Quote, I am crystal clear that the responsibility of what happened was on Mr. Cartagena and his co-defendant Tyshawn Brockington, 24 years old, Judge Farber said. Both men stormed into the Grant houses where Murphy lived that night, looking for revenge following a dispute with use from the nearby Manhattanville houses. Murphy, one of the country's, not just inner city, one of the country's top young point guards and a senior at Murray Bertram High School in Lower Manhattan, had been dancing with friends and family, this is sad, in a courtyard when Brockington and Cartagena chased her up 4 flights of stairs in the apartment building and pumped 3 bullets into her. Quote, there is no fault in anyone staying out till 3 a.m. dancing, Farber said, his voice wavering. Because basically people were trying to say, well, hey, it's her fault. She was out late. She was partying. No. She was with friends and family, hanging out, dancing like all of us have done, having a good time. More than a dozen of the beloved teen's family members filled the courtroom, dabbing tears from their eyes as Murphy's dad, Taylonn Murphy Jr., wrote, quote, Taylonn Murphy Sr. skewered Cartagena as a coward. He said, quote, to kill somebody, what sense of bravado is that? You don't get no point or accolades for that, end quote. The father told the court as his eyes locked with Cartagena's, quote, anything you got here, you definitely earned, quote. Brockington was convicted by a jury in June. Oh, sorry. So that's Cartagena he's talking about. Then going to Tyshawn Brockington. He was convicted by a jury in June and sentenced again. Both of them got 25 years to life in prison for the murder. Going back to Cartagena, a jury found Cartagena guilty on April 1st. The married father of 4 young daughters spoke briefly before sentencing Wednesday. He was married with 4 daughters, guys. Quote, I just want you to know that I didn't order or have no say in the steps. I have kids myself, and I would never do nothing to a female. I send my condolences. Everyone out there, have a good life, end quote, Cartagena said. Outside the courtroom, Cartagena's mother claimed her son was innocent, painting him as a loving father. Cartagena's mother said, quote, my son is being charged with a crime that he didn't commit. Quote, yes, he was there that night, but he wasn't the shooter, end quote, said Denise Cartagena, her eyes filling with tears. His lawyer plans to appeal. Jumping back to Tyshawn Brockington. in the paper. And this is kind of interesting, the way they talk. It says, a young thug was sent silent and sullen to prison today. I just kind of think, I mean, I get it, right? It's a thug, but I'm kind of like, geez, that's kind of racist. That's kind of, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know if you'd say that if it was a white guy. But anyway, the article reads, a young thug was sent silent and sullen to prison today for the random Harlem murder of high school basketball star Tayshana Chicken Murphy. His vile Facebook posting from an hour after the shooting spoke for him. It said, "Vile up, ho," Tyshawn Brockington wrote. He had snarled online a reference to Manhattanville houses, which was at war with Murphy's Grant houses, leaving her as a bloody, innocent casualty in her building's fourth-floor stairwell 2 years ago. So 2 years went by, go to trial, they get sentenced, or they plead out, they get sentenced. By Ville up, the killer had meant that in Murphy's death, so I said that wrong at first. It said, Ville up, ho. And what Ville up meant was the killer had meant that in Murphy's death, Manhattanville had just notched a one-up victory in the two projects' senseless war, prosecutors explained. And ho, quote, was the killer's final blow to the stranger who was his victim. Again, senseless, given her undisputed virtues as a sister, daughter, friend, and athlete. Quote, killing her was not enough, prosecutor Jeffrey Levinson said of Brockington at an emotional Manhattan Supreme Court sentencing. Quote, he has to call her a prostitute or a slut or a whore, end quote. The judge in Brockington's case decried his Facebook posting before giving him a 25 to life sentence, the max allowed. Certainly the Ville comment made an hour later showed some kind of abhorrent pride in what he had accomplished, end quote, said Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Thomas Farber. So the same judge sentenced both of these guys. 4 rows of the fallen basketball stars, family members, friends, and coaches attended the emotional sentencing. Quote, you took her breath, Mom Tiffany Holston said in the victim impact statement, her voice dignified but quavering as she faced her daughter's murderer. Quote, she wasn't yours. Murphy, a senior at Murray Bertram High School, had considered one of the country's top female point guards. Her dream was to make it big. When I read this, I did. She said she wanted to make it to the NBA. Not the WNBA, the NBA with the men, which, hey man, that's why you got to have dreams. And she made the promise that when she got there, she was going to bring everybody with her, he said. So, I'm not going to keep reading these quotes, but basically it just talks about the murders and what they did and the violence and everything. There was actually a third gentleman. I caught this. I'm glad I read this part. His name was Tariq Collins. He supplied the guns. He's an ex-convict accused of supplying the murder weapon used to kill Chicken. He's being held in jail for allegedly violating his parole by getting rearrested on weapons possession in connection with the murder of Tayshana Murphy. The Division of Parole said he was released in February after serving 1.5 years of a 3.5-year sentence for selling crack in front of police. So yeah, he's the guy that supplied the guns. So you've got this major beef between Manhattanville and the Grant housing projects. You've got 3 Stacks, Money Ave boys or Money Ave gang, and there's other gangs wrapped up in this. So now we're going to get into her brother, Taylonn Murphy Jr., who we kind of talked about briefly. He was a member of the 3 Stacks crew. And he's actually the one that participated in the killing of Walter Sumter, who was leaving a Sweet 16 B-Day party when he was killed. Now, Taylonn Murphy Jr. was only 16 when he saw his sister die. Because remember, she was with family. She was dancing when they chased her up those 4 flights of stairs. He gets indicted for the killing of Walter Sumter. And you see that in some of these pictures I'm putting up sitting in the court. He was found guilty of all the top counts in the indictment, including conspiracy, assault, and second-degree murder in the killing of Sumter. But in his case, it's a little interesting, right? Because some people are like, well, it was based entirely on the testimony of 3 fellow gang members who, when faced with the kinds of, basically the punishments that they were looking at, agreed to testify against Murphy in exchange for reduced sentences. And 2 of them were members of a rival gang. And those were the only 2 that said they saw the murder take place. After reading through some more of it, I'll be honest, I do kind of believe he's guilty. And I'll also be honest and say, I don't blame him. Because Walter Sumter is the one that dissed his sister's death a few months after her murder on YouTube. And 2 weeks after he did that, he was murdered. I just feel like kind of what goes around comes around in this life. So, reading through some of these articles, it said, last week another black youth was found guilty of murder, another kid from the housing projects. This time it was Taylonn Murphy Jr. He was one of the last remaining open cases from the largest gang bust in New York City history. So, that's also why I was able to kind of try to put a bow on all this, because there's so much info. He was part of that huge gang roundup that you saw the news story on when they're dragging the guys out. Remember, he's part of the 3 Stacks gang. No physical evidence, no DNA, no surveillance video of the shooting, no weapon. The trial was a clear demonstration of the way prosecutors push the limits in order to get a conviction. In the case of Murphy Jr., the facts are these. He was arrested in the 2014 raid of Harlem's, Manhattanville's, and Grant's housing projects. So, quick timeline. 2011, Tayshana is killed. All right? Not long after that, Walter Reck is killed. 3 years go by, and Taylonn Murphy Jr. is wrapped up in this raid, and his thing takes forever to play out. Right? But he was a member of the 3 Stacks gang. These gang members that were rivals testified against him for a reduced sentence. And the only reason I kind of can see him doing it, and obviously not blame him, is because of what they did. But it's like, geez, even if you kind of think he did it and you'd understand why he did it, it's like there's no evidence. And it's just crazy the way the politics, the way the court system plays out. And this is where I'm going to stop for a second and say, comment below. I want to know what you guys, if any of you have experienced injustice. Because, it's one of those things where you go to jail, you go to prison, right? Everybody's innocent. No, I didn't do it, I'm innocent. No, I didn't do it, I'm innocent. But there really are innocent people. I know so many guys that can't afford a lawyer, and they sit there in county jail for 2 years, 3 years. So please comment below if you've had family members, spouses go through the court system and feel like they've been mistreated, or if you yourself have had to go through the court system fighting a case. Tell me your story below. I promise I will comment back. So he was part of the 2014 raid between the Manhattanville and the Grant housing projects. He was subsequently charged with the 2011 murder of Walter Reck Sumter. The backstory was this. Murphy's sister, Tayshana, was shot dead in the hallway of their building in the Grant houses in 2011. Taylonn, he was only 16 at the time. Sumter later posted a video mocking Tayshana's death 2 weeks before his own murder. Murphy took to Facebook to post a menacing reply. So he did write this, though. Quote, dead on sight beef, end quote. The bigger story is this. Murphy took a chance with the jury and lost, and he probably will serve many more years in prison for having tried to fight his case instead of taking a plea. That's not to say he isn't guilty. We don't know, and the jury for now at least has spoken. But of the 103, this is crazy how many people were rounded up, 103 young men and youth arrested and indicted in June of 2014 in that whole roundup, an activity tied to 3 gangs. And those 3 gangs, remember I said there were the main 2 we've talked about, 3 Stacks and Money Ave. There was a third one called the Make It Happen gang. Out of 103, an astonishing 95 have pled guilty. That's like a 98%. Many taking 5 to 15-year plea deals. Almost none of them, only a handful, chose to go to trial like Murphy. Those are amazing stats. Some 93% of those rounded up that day took a plea rather than face trial, despite how thin the evidence against many of them appeared to be. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, yes, the gang's doing things, and they came out with stats after this roundup saying, oh, look, the crime dropped, there hadn't been a homicide committed, this and that. But it's like, dude, there's still laws, there's still rights, people still have rights. You can't just violate that stuff. And that's what kind of they're getting at with this is, yes, we're not fighting that these guys aren't gang members, but it's like you can't just go in and pull 100 people off the street. And it's like they just get them to plead out. That's the court system, man. They're going to get you in there on something. They're going to throw you in county jail. They know the justice system. If you guys haven't noticed in my videos, how long do these things take, right? Oh, arrested in 2015. goes to court in 18, the case ends in 18, right? He's guilty, and he's sentenced in 2020. It's like, God, it takes half a decade just to wrap it up. That's why a lot of these guys, they're young. So plead out, give me the 5 years or 10 years, whatever. I'm going to do half of it, and I'm going to get out. Let's just get this over with. And it's a broken system. I will say that. It's a broken system. And that's what it says in this article. The system is engineered to extract plea bargains from defendants. How do prosecutors do it? ? For starters, set bail unrealistically high. Then as the arrestee's family hunts for money to get him out, he sweats it out on Rikers Island, the Tombs, or some other hellhole. Then the leverage begins. Next, the DA overcharges him, which immediately establishes a much higher potential sentence. It just scares, man. That's what I tell people, man. When you see people, having myself been through enough of this crap, whenever you see friends, family charged, or people come and talk to me, I go, just wait it out, because the initial charges are what's going to scare you. They're going to overcharge because they want you to take the plea. Right? And the negotiation starts from an extreme position. Throw in a conspiracy charge, that lowers the bar for the prosecutors. They just got to show, when you add conspiracy, it just got to shows that I talked to Bob about this, and Bob told me about he was going to maybe go take a car. He might have stole somebody's car. Okay, well, I just know Bob stole a car. Well, Bob went and shot somebody. I didn't even know that, but I knew Bob stole the car. They can tie me into the murder. It's crazy, guys. It's crazy when you really look into it. So this article, and the reason I'm going to talk about two articles, this article kind of goes a little light on Taylonn Murphy Jr. And don't get me wrong, if he killed Sumter, even if Sumter dissed his sister's death, he doesn't have a right. He doesn't deserve to die. Don't get me wrong, he doesn't deserve to die. This article, again, I noticed this in the New York, they call him a thug as well, Taylonn Murphy Jr. Quote, a violent thug was convicted of murder Thursday for the gang-related shooting of a rival who had mocked the slaying of his high school basketball star sister. It took the Manhattan jury about 1 day to find Taylonn Murphy, only 20 years old, guilty of murder, conspiracy, there's that conspiracy word, and other charges for the killing of Walter Sumner. As the verdict was read, Murphy's mother, Tiffany Holston, ran from the courtroom sobbing. Murphy and 102 other defendants were rounded up in 2014 in the largest gang takedown in city history. A violent turf war had raged for decades between the two housing projects in Harlem. Murphy was a member of 3 Stacks. He shot rival Sumter of the Money Ave gang after he posted a rap video online ridiculing the murder of his sister, Tayshana Chicken Murphy, in 2011. 3 gun-toting thugs from the gang, Make It Happen Boys, which is aligned with Money Ave, randomly pumped 3 bullets into Tayshana. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. I didn't know that. I did read it earlier, but now I'm okay. I must have missed that. Make It Happen Boys were aligned with Money Ave, so it's kind of 2 against 1. So it was a combination of the 2 gangs that shot Tayshana as a retribution for an attack on one of their own. The young girl, rising basketball star who was ranked on the country's, so get this, she was ranked the 16th best point guard in her class. In the country, not just in the state. She bled to death in the stairwell of her own building. Murphy, like the 2 that killed his sister, faces also 25 years to life. It's just crazy. Oh, and he ended up getting like 50 years for everything. Yeah, he got like 50 years. It's insane. It's insane. So I read about how they're guilty, but I did read what he got. Yeah, so get this. There it is. Convicted and sentenced to 50 years in prison at the age of 20 or 21 for murdering a man later in 2011. It was an act of retaliation. 50 years. Yeah, he's going to get good time. He's going to get time off. He'll probably do 20, but still, man. See your sister get murdered, gang war back and forth. It's all just bad. There's not a winner. I want to talk about a little bit about Taylonn Murphy Sr. Lost his daughter to violence and then lost his son. So basically, the quote, he said he's on both sides of the gun, right? He lost one to violence, then his son committed a violent crime, taking somebody's life, and he lost his son to the system. He's quoted as saying, a lot of people call me Mr. Both Sides of the Gun. He's a big community activist. He works with other parents that have lost friends and family. He started like a Queens project to just combat gang violence, to work with the community, and you need people like him. And unfortunately, people like him rise from the ashes of events like this where their whole world is ripped apart. So yeah, just a crazy story. I really wanted to bring it to you guys. If you guys noticed the last couple of videos I've done, this one and the one I did before, I'll be honest, I don't get the same views I get as I do on some of these other videos. And some of these other topics, I know they're going to get better views. But I've said in my description of my channel, and I've said in some of these intros, that I'm going to make videos on things that I want to make videos on and find interesting. And I'm trying to stick to that. Because it's hard, man. I'm not going to lie. It's hard not wanting to make a video that I know just with a couple keywords is going to take off. But I want it to be different. I want it to be something that I want to make a video on. That's why I did one about the violent inmate in Washington State. You know, that's why I jumped back over here to New York and a female basketball star. So anyway, there you guys have it. Really appreciate you guys checking out the video. Until next time, see ya.